What's going on, Built by Bai team? Thanks for checking out this week's Bendy Stretch Class. Today, we're going to be doing a runner stretch class, and you guys know I'm not a runner. You know I don't enjoy it, but I have been running more, and this is a good class, especially as we are going into summer months. Some people do want to try out running. We do have some crazies on the team that do like to do long distance running, so this is going to be a great class to make sure that we're recovering the muscles that we utilize a lot during our runs, so we're preventing any injuries, speeding up our times, and all that kind of good stuff. So stick with me, find a good space to get this stretch in, and let's get bendy. Alrighty, so this first one that we're going to do, we're going to start in a standing triangle position. Has this got me? What if I bend down? Okay, I got my assistant back here helping me out. We're going to start in a triangle pose, so I want us about this far apart. I don't really know how to explain that. Let's say shoulder width apart, but you're going to have your toes pointing to the right. We're going to come into a triangle hamstring stretch, and I want you to primarily feel that stretch here in this front leg. Take some big deep breaths, and as you are breathing deeper and deeper, I want you to try to fall more into the stretch, because again, another thing you guys know we talk about a lot is not clenching, forcing yourself into the stretch. You got to get the muscles to relax to make sure that we are turning off that fight or flight system within our muscles so that we aren't getting injured, pushing ourselves too far into these stretches. The more you can relax, the better progress you're going to see, and the deeper you can fall into that stretch. So give me 2 more big breaths here. Last one. Beautiful. Okay, let's go ahead and rotate. We're going to take the toes to the left, have about feet shoulder width apart, hinging at our hips. We can have a slight bend in both knees. I don't want us locked out by any means, but we're going to primarily feel that stretch here in our left leg. Big deep breaths. And again, every time I want you to kind of pay attention, check in with your body of hey, am I clenching? Am I tightening? Am I flexing that muscle? Or am I relaxed? If we got a lot of shakiness going on with that one, we're probably not as relaxed as we need to be. We might be forcing the stretch a little too much. So big deep breaths and try to fall into it. If you're struggling, if you can't quite get to the ground yet, a couple things we can do is take a wider stance. That'll help us get lower, or we can just, again, hang out at our shin. You can also grab some blocks if you have some of those. Be up on your fist. Kind of find whatever is comfortable for you. But just big deep breaths. Finish off with one here with me. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to take it down low. We're going to be stretching out our hip flexor. I want you to stretch out your right side. I'm going to make sure I'm getting in the right angles and everything. But we are going to come into a deep lunge into this stretch. Hands can be on the inside of our feet, and you're going to drive your right hip into the floor, into the bench, wherever you're stretching, to get a good pull here on the top of the leg. Your hip flexor is in this area. So kind of play around with alignment if you're needing. Take a wide stance and put that stretch into our hip flexors. These ones are, my hair is so in the way. These ones are very over agitated, especially if you're a long distance runner, because you got to think it's very one plane of motion within running, where it's just your hip flexors are hiking you up, letting you down, hiking you up, letting you down. So they can get tight over time, creating pain, can lead to injuries. So it's really important to make sure we're stretching them out. Big deep breaths and try to sink a little deeper into that. Beautiful. Go ahead and come out of that, and let's work our way to our other side. We're going to be stretching out our left hip flexor. Again, we're going to take a wide stance. I want to make sure we're staying in a 90 degree in that front leg, and then we'll send whatever hip flexor we're stretching, our left one right now, send that knee back to create that deep lunge. Knee is going to be knee is going to be stacked over our ankle. Hands are on the inside of our right foot, and we're driving this hip down into the floor. Big deep breaths. Kind of find whatever's comfortable alignment with you. This is definitely my tighter side, so if you need to spend some more time on wherever you hold a lot of your tightness, that's okay. The goal is to get the body working evenly together, because over time those compensations can lead to different like gaits within our running. So it's really important to make sure that we're not super tight on one side, super relaxed on one side. So when it comes to stretching, you don't necessarily stretch the same time or same length on each side. You got to stretch the side you're tighter on a little bit more. And I will say this, if you're having pain, a lot of the times what I see working here at Stretch Lab is if somebody comes in with right knee pain, it's typically because the left side's too tight and it's having to work, like your right side's having to work harder in compensation for it. So I'd recommend finding somebody that can help you with assisted stretching, reaching out to me with some questions, and I can give you some better information about that kind of thing. Now what we're gonna do, you're gonna come into a kneeling position. Let's go ahead and stretch out our left side. We'll stretch out our right side first, or it's gonna throw me out of system. But we're gonna be in a kneeling position here on this leg. We're gonna extend this right leg out to our side. Make sure the sole of your foot is pushed into the floor, and we're gonna sink down and stretch out our adductor, our groin within this one. And we can kind of rock around within this stretch. If you're struggling with alignment, or if you're struggling with like good muscle mind connection, play around with the way you're angling yourself to see if you can get a better stretch in a different position. If you need to go wider or anything like that. This is a really good one because this one ties down into the inside of the knee, and so a lot of times this can create some knee pain. This is typically a very neglected muscle, to say the least, but it is really important to make sure that we are getting it to relax. When I did my 10K, my adductors took the brunt of it. So this is when I've been paying attention to, making sure I'm giving it the TLC it deserves. Beautiful. Give me 3 more seconds here. Beautiful, and come out of it. No, they're in the back. We have 2. Okay, now, excuse my coworker. We're gonna go ahead and work on this left side. Again, remember that the sole of our foot is gonna go into the floor, into the bench, and I want you to sink your hips down and creating a good stretch here in the adductor. Breathing is really important to make sure, because a lot of times why stretching always sucks is because we're taught like we kind of have to force it, hold it for really long times. We probably go into it a little too deeper than we like, too deep, more deep. I don't know how I'm trying to say that, but a little too deep, and our body can't truly relax into that position, which isn't going to do us any benefits. So make sure that you are, again, giving yourself some grace. We don't have to go into the max position, but as you're breathing, you should be able to sink a little deeper into it, especially as those muscles relax. Again, you can kind of rock about in this position, lean into it, see kind of what feels good for you, where you get a good stretch on. About 5 more seconds here. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to come into pigeon to make sure we're stretching out our deep glute muscles, primarily our piriformis. So again, starting on that right leg, you're going to plank back with this one. Right one's going to tuck up underneath you and sink into it. So you're going to get a good stretch here in this area of your glute. If being too low on your elbows hurts, you can elevate yourself with your hands. You can use blocks, or if you're ready for it, go down onto those elbows. This is one of my favorite stretches, I'm not gonna lie. This one's really good for back pain. Hips are a really common one that get locked up. We just don't typically stretch them enough. And let it go. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Same thing, I'm going to stay on this side so you can see what it looks like reverse, but that foot is going to tuck through, sink that right leg back, and again, create that good deep stretch in the piriformis. Breathing controls our nervous system and lets the muscles know, especially like when we are trying to extend and like lengthen our muscles. Our body's not necessarily used to it. So we have all these like little things in our muscles that their job is to like, oh, hey, like I'm going to get hurt. We're stretched too far. Well, we got to get those little guys to relax, especially if we're not going into the stretch too deep. You can get hurt if you stretch yourself too far, too deep. But if we kind of find that like tension that we can handle, get ourselves to relax, sink deeper into it, that's how we're going to keep increasing the length of our muscle, maintaining it, keeping overall good mobility, moving our body well, and all the good things like that. Give me one more big breath here. Beautiful. Really quick, we're going to just stretch out calves. These are another really common one for runners especially. And a really common way to stretch it is like putting that toe up against a wall. But a lot of times we're just not getting the best muscle engagement with that one. So on this, we're going to go into like a half plank. You're going to put the balls of your feet into the bench, and you're going to drive back into your heel to create a stretch in your calf. And this is a really good one. It's going to kind of identify where you have a lot of tightness within your calf, because we have two different muscles. We have our gastrocnemius and our soleus. They both tie in around the ankle, but it's only your soleus that ties in around your knee. I might have that backwards. Either way, kind of pay attention if you're feeling the stretch closer toward your knee, closer toward your ankle. That's going to give us some cues of where you need to primarily focus. Good. Go ahead and switch sides. Same thing, coming into that half plank, balls of your feet go into the bench or into the floor, and drive that heel back. So for me personally on this one, I feel the stretch in the same spot on both sides. However, my left side is tighter, feeling more of a stretch than my right side did. So this is one stretching on my own. I would want to make sure that I'm giving it some more TLC compared to my right. Big deep breaths. Can rock through it, kind of whatever feels good for you. Beautiful. Go ahead and come out of that. And then I'm really going to make us all suffer, finishing off with the frog stretch. So on this one, ideally, we have our feet pointed out, and we are going to sit back in between our feet. Oh, that one's so uncomfortable. If you're struggling with that though, still you're going to take your knees a little bit wider. We still want our feet out, but you can keep your toes in. I'm like not in a good angle on this bench at all. So just take those knees a little bit wider and try to sit in between them. This is really good because it's going to be stretching out our shin a little bit, but this is good for the hip rotators, the quads, especially the knee joint, taking off any pressure, especially if you struggle with knee pain when you're running. Not going to make us too miserable here for too long. Try to sink into that one as much as you can. If you need to use blocks to elevate yourself, you totally can. Like again, ideally we have these feet turned out and we can sit down completely. But this is a pretty advanced stretch. It's going to be really good for runners. So that's why we're incorporating it this week. But if you're not as far into this one, that's okay. Keep practicing it, because as we get our body used to it, it's going to feel a lot more natural. Our body's not going to want to like fight back against us. Like I notice for myself with this one, this isn't a stretch I do a lot personally. So I can kind of feel my body like muscles will like turn on of like, oh, get yourself out of that. It's not the most comfortable, but I need to get myself to relax more into it. Let's go 2 more breaths here. And elevate out of that one. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you guys so much for doing this runner stretch class, especially if you are incorporating more running into your personal plan. This is going to be a really good class to do regularly. So come back, watch it, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it. The goal with Built by Bai is to make sure that we are working for a very well-rounded level of fitness, and these weekly stretch classes are an important piece of that. So Thank you guys for checking that out. If there's anything you'd like to see in the future, let me know. But thanks for getting to bendy with me. I'll see you next week.